All right, talking Stanley Cup final now. A couple of local hockey players. Joe McDonald, Cranston East, writes for The Athletic. Dave Capuano, Mount St. Charles. Played a little bit in the NHL, of course. I did not play high school hockey, but I did go to South Kingstown. So here we are, guys. We finally have the matchup, the St. Louis Blues. And I'll start with this. Will the Blues be the best team the Bruins have seen yet this playoffs?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, they wouldn't be in this situation if they weren't. You know, the two best teams are playing for the Stanley Cup right now. So it's a good matchup for both. As Bruce Cassidy said today, it's almost like it's the Bruins twin, mirror images of each other. They have depth, strong on D. They've got the goaltending. So this is going to be an interesting series for the Bruins. You
were saying during the West final that St. Louis was the tougher matchup. You've liked them for a while now.
I just think they play a 200-foot game like the Bruins. And I think defensively they got big, strong defense and forwards who are going to be physical.
So should we expect low-scoring games? That's what Bruce Cassidy was saying today. How are the Bruins ultimately going to win night in and night out?
Well, as we were talking right before we came on air, and Dave made a good point, at this time of the year, it doesn't come down to the top guys. You know, it comes down to the bottom six. And you can go back over the last 10 years and you can see the Stanley Cup winners. It's those third and fourth lines that can really make an impact. And that's how the Bruins won the Cup in 2011. So you're right. As Bruce Cassidy mentioned today, they will be low-scoring games, and it's going to come down to those impact players and those timely goals because both goaltenders are playing well at this point.
You mentioned the goaltenders. Jordan Binnington was on the Providence Bruins last year on loan, a soccer term, because the Blues didn't have an AHL team. Unbelievable story. Obviously, the team was in last place on January 1st, so how improbable is it? What does it say about the sport of hockey that this guy can literally come out of nowhere and be in the Cup final?
I think it's amazing that the route he took, and I think the confidence he took throughout the whole thing. I mean, they wanted to send him to the East Coast League, and he said, "I'm not going.
Yeah,
I'm not an East Coast League goalie." And I think it's amazing what he's done, and I think he's going to be there. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him. I think he's going to be ready to play.
The other goalie, Tuukka Rask. You live here, you work here, you know the sort of heat Tuukka has gotten over the years. Is he going to have his David Price moment where if the Bruins win, he says, "Screw all of you guys"? Does he have that in him? And what do you think his motivation is because people have been so critical of him?
I don't think he has that in him, Yianni, because he knows how good he is. And he has shown that in the past. And look, I've been critical of him since he's played in Providence.
Yeah.
And the difference between Tuukka Rask this playoff run compared to when they went to the finals in 2013 is that this time around he's stealing games. He stole games against the Maple Leafs, against the Blue Jackets, and he was outstanding against the Hurricanes. So at this point, you'd have to say if the Bruins win, then he's a strong candidate for the Conn Smythe, you know, without a doubt. And I always said until he does this, you know, you can't really call him an elite goalie in Boston. But no matter how this turns out in the next couple weeks, you have to give Tuukka a lot of credit because they wouldn't be here without him.
2011, everyone remembers Tim Thomas. Will ultimately this be the playoff year Tuukka is remembered?
If he wins. But again, I think he was seeing the puck so well in that last series, he's going to have a layoff. And what's going to happen if that first one doesn't hit him?
Yeah.
And the second one doesn't hit him? It's a quick series, 7 games. Everybody thinks it's 7 games. It goes by quick. You get down 1-0, 2-0, and you give St. Louis the confidence. Tuukka might, fall apart. You don't know.
I was reading today that the Blues don't go to the penalty box a lot. Obviously, the Bruins did really well last series, almost 50% scoring on the power play. Are they going to be able to take advantage in that department again?
Well, when you talk about two physical teams, as the Bruins and St. Louis have showcased, it's going to be such a physical series that discipline's going to be a big factor here. And the Bruins, when Columbus tried to play that physical style, Bruins pushed back and they dominated in that. Not dominated, but they won that matchup in the physicality department. So I think that St. Louis plays that game certainly, but the Bruins can push back. Not saying that San Jose couldn't, but the San Jose Sharks last series, they were pretty banged up. So I think the St. Louis Blues want to play that style against the Bruins. It's probably going to be the toughest matchup they face this year.
All right, when we look back on this run, obviously the players win and lose games, but when you talk about what Bruce Cassidy's done, some moves Don Sweeney made at the trade deadline this year that were huge, whatever Cam Neely does day to day, how do you sort of cut up the credit pie for this Bruins run being where they are?
You have to give Don Sweeney a ton of credit because every single trade deadline he goes out and he fills the piece that he thinks the team needs. A year ago it was Rick Nash. Obviously that didn't work out. This year it was, okay, first of all, we need someone to play with David Krejci, and we need that third line center. They go out, they get Charlie Coyle, he's been fantastic. They go out, they get Marcus Johansson, who's been solid as well. And the best part about that is Bruce Cassidy decided to put Johansson and Coyle together on the third line right before the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they quickly meshed. They've got that chemistry. Now you have that depth. We know what the fourth line is. Now they have four lines that Bruce Cassidy can roll, and that has a lot to do with Don Sweeney and Bruins management, including Cam Neely, to say, look, we know that window is closing on this team, on this veteran core, and we need to win now. So go out and do what you need to do. And they did. And as Dave knows, when an organization does that, in the room, those players get fired up for that because management's doing their take or their role, and then we're going to do what we need to do.
You played for different NHL coaches, different styles. What does Bruce Cassidy do that his guys follow him?
For me, watching, I think his communication is unbelievable. I think he communicates with those guys, and I think it's a huge point to his success. I also think, getting back to what Joe said, the depth that they've created has helped Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasta, giving them more time and not having to play 25 minutes or 22 minutes a game. And I think that's been key throughout the whole playoff run to keep them fresh.
All right, let's do some prediction time here. Who is the MVP of the Bruins this series should they win?
Oh, that's a great
non-Tuukka.
Non-Tuukka going. All right. I mean, you can't not go against, a guy like Patrice Bergeron.
Right.
But again, it's going to come down to the third and fourth line guys that really make an impact. But knowing the way the voting process goes, I would have to say, other than Tuukka, it's probably going to be a Bergeron or a Marchand.
I would go Marchand.
Yeah. All right. How does the series go? Who wins, and in how many games?
I'm going to go with the Bruins in 6, if they stay healthy. I think if they stay healthy, they can beat St. Louis. Any injuries is going to be a huge determination of this series. One guy goes down, and it can be a huge difference maker.
I go Bruins in 7.
Okay.
I've seen the Red Sox win on the road and at home. I've seen the Bruins win on the road.
Yep.
I would love to see what this market, this city, New England, this region reacts to a Bruins winning the Stanley Cup.
And if they win, will they be remembered as good of a team as 11?
Apples and oranges, right? I mean, 2011 was a special team. The goaltending performance by Tim Thomas was historical. But certainly this team, the way it's currently constituted with that veteran core that's already won, with the new generation coming up, with the way Tuukka's playing, I don't know. God, Yianni, that's a great question. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But
And I know 13 lost, but is this team better than 13?
I think it is.
Yeah.
And 13, they were banged up. I mean, you're talking Patrice Bergeron was playing with a collapsed lung, a separated shoulder, broken ribs. A lot of guys, Gregory Campbell was out of the lineup then, and he was a fourth-line guy, a penalty killer at that time. As Dave mentioned, the team is healthy right now. If they can remain healthy, that's a great point by Dave that, this team should go all the way.
All right, Joe McDonald from The Athletic, Dave Capuano, former NHL player. They will be with us throughout our Stanley Cup coverage, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.